What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 5, Episode 11, Shipbroken. So I both love and kind of get aggravated by this episode. Aggravation comes from the fact that this is all Gary's doing, and it's for a really dumb reason. Like, oh, I saw a cute puppy and I wanted to grab him even though I was in hell. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge dog person. Any dog on the side of the road, I'm always like, puppers, and I want to pet it. But if I went to hell and I saw a dog there, I would not bring him back with me because there's probably a good reason why he's there. So the fact that he did that was just really dumb. However, I also love this episode because it's very Legends of Tomorrow to have the bad guy be the random dog controlling everybody to create chaos, and he happens to be the dog of Son of Sam who claimed that the dog was telling him to do it. This is actually the dog that did it. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a funny concept. So that's kind of my whole feeling for the episode in general. As far as kind of the little side stories going on, the stuff with Mick and his daughter is okay. There were definitely some funny moments. I mean, the one line from him is like, look, I understand what it's like to hate your parents. I mean, I burned mine. That's just a good line, and it's a good Mick Rory line as well. But the overarching story is just kind of, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I feel like they're turning Mick into too much of a normal person when it comes to this. I mean, they still have the Mick Rory isms and him trying to be a parent, but they still have too many moments for me of, okay, he seems very normal in this scene right now. He seems like he's actually feeling what normal people feel. And I don't know, I've never seen him as that type of person. He's always kind of been a sociopath to me who just enjoys stealing and burning things. But deep down, he's got a heart of gold, so he wants to do it for better reasons than he was doing it before. But it doesn't mean he wants to stop. So I guess there are definitely moments where it feels like Mick Rory trying to teach his daughter, but there are also moments where it feels like an actual dad trying to teach his daughter. And I wanted there to be a little bit more meshing of Mick Rory just fully trying to be a dad and teach his daughter, and how that wouldn't work but also would, because she is not necessarily a psychopath or sociopath, but she's definitely not a normal kid. So yeah, I like parts of it, but there are other parts I was just kind of like, it's a little boring. The stuff with Sarah is okay as well. I mean, her being blind and then being able to see the future, I don't really know what to think about that. I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that she saw, I think it was Lachesis is the one she saw in her full, like, godly form or whatever. So I don't know if that affected her soul and now she has this ability, or if she took some of that ability from Lachesis. I don't know if Lachesis has that ability or not, if that's who it is. It could be Atropos, but I don't remember which one is which now. But what's kind of got me engaged in all of this is how they're handling it. Like, it is very much a realistic feeling to be like, okay, I'm blind, but now suddenly I'm having these visions of everybody dying. It's probably some weird side effect. Like, she doesn't really fully believe it herself. I thought she was just hiding it because she was like, oh, I don't want to tell anybody because I don't want them to worry about this. But in reality, it was more like I just don't. I feel like this isn't real. I feel like this is just all in my head, so I'm just not going to mention it. It did go on maybe a little too long, but I do appreciate the fact that it wasn't like she was hiding it for a bad reason. Like, she actually thought it wasn't going to end up being real, and then ultimately it was. So maybe in this world, maybe you should probably take those, at least tell people what you're seeing, so that way it's not like, well, it just doesn't matter. It's just a random side effect. Because, yeah, in this world, the possibility of her seeing the future is a lot higher. But, yeah, I'm curious to see what that's going to be, though, because it does seem like it's possible for somebody else to step in and become a fate. So is it possible that Sarah is becoming one of the fates? I mean, she was the Paragon of Destiny, so is that going to lead to her being one of the three fates? And they were already talking about Astra is perfectly set up to be a fate, so is it going to be now where Charlie, Sarah, and Astra are going to become the new fates after they take out Lachesis and Atropos? I don't know. It's just kind of a theory that came into my head as they were talking about Astra becoming one, and then all of a sudden Sarah gets this ability. I feel like that would make sense. And it would also allow them to be able to use the loom in the first place, because it sounds like they need all three sisters. The one, Clotho, who's able to, I guess, what would her ability be? Because I think hers is like how long it's supposed to go. I don't remember now. I've taken a little bit of a break since I last watched an episode, so I don't remember which one does which. But I feel like one of them is able to see the end of the lifeline, basically. And so that would end up being Sarah. And then one of them is in charge of, like, actually ending it. It's been too long since I've watched it, but yeah, that's just kind of my theory about what's going to happen, is that the three of them are going to end up doing that and creating the loom. And I don't know if they're going to be able to bring Behrad back, because, I mean, again, the fact that he died in the original timeline and then came into this new one and suddenly he's alive, and whether it was Lachesis or Atropos, came in, basically saw, no, this is your fate, you're not supposed to be here, and cut off his lifeline. I feel like it's going to be a lot more difficult than just, oh, well, let's just sew him back a new one. So I don't really expect them to be able to change that. Astra's mom, maybe they'll be able to change that one. I don't really know much about, like, we haven't heard much about her story and whether or not this is part of her fate and who Astra becomes. But I do feel like changing that is going to change Astra in some way as well. Like, she's not going to be the same person. So, but as far as kind of all the different things with Astra and Zari, with Nate and kind of their whole thing, it was okay. I'm still not really on board with Zari at the moment. Again, she was made a bit more interesting with meeting her other self, but there's still a lot about her that I'm just kind of like, she's really annoying. She still acts very much like a social media influencer who's just like, ooh, I care more about myself than anybody else, so we're going to do my brother first because it's all about me. And I don't know, I don't like people who are like that. So, yeah, her personality is still very grating. The conversations between her and Astra in this one were okay, but I'm still not really gripped by their back and forth, because that does seem like a good matchup. You've got Astra, who is a master manipulator, with Zari, who is an influencer and can also be a manipulator. So she saw right through Astra trying to manipulate her into saying, like, hey, let's do her mom first. So there could be an interesting dynamic there, but I feel like they're not really tackling all the different aspects of their lives. They're just sort of putting them together in some scenes, and it's okay, but it's not really grabbed me yet. And I'm not like, that's a good team up. And on top of that, they're still playing with the whole idea of, oh, well, Nate still loves Zari from the past timeline, but this current Zari is actually more feeling for John. Like, they're still playing on that love triangle a little bit, which I'm just not at all interested in. So, I think that's about it, though. Overall, I mean, just some of the standout moments in this episode, I think, are, first of all, when they were all trapped inside the thing because they were hiding from the Hellhound. I did enjoy that scene a little bit, just because, I don't know, seeing them all like really scrunched together, and then Nate, Gary, your hand is touching me back there. And then all of a sudden when Zarya says, he's like, you can leave your hand. And Gary's like, can I put my hand? Shut up, Gary! So any sort of Gary hate can always get a laugh out of me. And then on top of that, whenever Sarah and Nate were being controlled, although Sarah's was in a vision that she was having, but just the controlling thing, something was very funny about that. Like, just listening to the Hellhound, just, hey, Gary can't hear me, so you should kill him. And then Sarah just straight up does it. And then for Nate, just like, oh yeah, I can only hear barking, but he's also telling me that I should murder all of you. He's making some very good points. And then grabs the stool. Just something about the deadpan delivery of, oh yeah, he's telling me to kill you guys. I don't know, it's just very funny to me. So, but yeah, a very fun episode with some darker moments, but I love dark humor. So, yeah, that's about it for this episode. On to the next one. See you there. And now, episode 12, Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Greeks. So again, very similar to the last one. Elements of it that I loved, and elements of it that I was not so happy about. In this one, the elements that I wasn't happy about, it just comes down to all the sorority and fraternity stuff, and not just because I wasn't in one, but I don't know, something about that type of humor doesn't really ever get me laughing that much. They did have a couple clever ones with like Nate becoming a super frat bro, but that's only because Nate is not normally like this. So to see him become that, it was pretty funny. I think Nick Zano, is that his name? I thought he did a really good job just portraying that as well. So that part of it was kind of funny, but the rest of it I'm just not a big fan of. Dionysus being kind of the frat king was a clever addition, but it still just wasn't enough to really get me laughing at the whole idea. I'll admit, though, again, very Legends how it ends with the fact that it all comes down to Sarah beating Dionysus in a game of beer pong. Um, Everything else, I was just kind of like, it's okay, whatever, I don't really care. But then when it got to that point, I'm like, well, I mean, this is a Legends way to end an episode, so it's pretty on point. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was perfectly fine. Again, Mick and his daughter, I don't know, still moments of hilarity with him going back in time and donating to buy a building because that's what another father did. That's funny. But then the other moments where he feels like he's out of place and he feels like he doesn't fit in and he would prefer, Nate to step in and pretend to be her dad because, well, he's much more like these people. That part of it, I don't know, it makes him seem more human, and I don't really want to look at Mick as if he's more human, because that's kind of the fun of it, is he's not really like other humans. So I don't know, I wish they would focus more on the stuff like going back in time and buying a building, because that's funny. That's really, it's in character for him as well, to just, I have all this money that I stole, so let me go buy a building for my daughter. So I hope they, if they're going to make more jokes, if they're going to have more storyline with him and his daughter, I really hope that they focus more on stuff like that instead of him feeling like he's not good enough as a father or him feeling like he's out of place as a father. That part of it is just not as entertaining to me. But, I mean, everything else, it all kind of tied in. You got Astra. She doesn't feel like she's ever going to be trusted. And, of course, at the end of this, whichever one of the fates, I can't remember which one this is now. Hopefully they mention their names in the next episode so that way I can remember who is who. Because all I remember is Charlie is Clotho. I don't remember which one is Lachesis and Atropos between the other two. But yeah, obviously her showing up and basically like, hey, I'm coming to collect a debt means she's going to force her to betray the team, which, after everybody just started to trust her some more, is of course going to be awful timing. So that's probably going to be a bit of a storyline next episode. But her and Charlie kind of connecting in this episode was perfectly fine. The other girls, I don't know, just kind of random. These three girls that are outcasts and are just like, hey, we're going to give you a home. And then at the end of it, they're like, yeah, we're going to keep this sorority going because it's a place for outcasts and people who don't fit in. And I'm just like, okay, so this is your message. Be who you are, even if that makes you an outcast. Okay, cool. I mean, it's not as hammered in as some of the other messages I've seen on the CW, DC, Arrowverse shows, but so just kind of like, okay, so I guess this episode had a message to it. Sure. I don't know. Overall, everything was just kind of okay. Just whatever. Nothing really grabbed my attention, but nothing was really bad in this episode either. A lot of it didn't click for me, and then there were some parts that did. So I got some laughs. So overall, not a terrible episode, just not as good as most of what Legends of Tomorrow has been in the past, minus the Mona episodes. But anyways, I think that's about it for this episode, so on to the final of these three. See you there. And now, episode 13, I Am Legends. I see what you did there. It's also funny because I'm watching this, and obviously the Will Smith slap happened. I just invented a new word because that's how tired I am. But yeah, just kind of ironic that happened just last week, and I'm doing this review now. So, but anyways, yeah, pretty interesting overall. Gary's part of this, again, it very much Legends-esque, but also some frustrating elements because Gary is still Gary, and there's still moments where I'm just kind of like frustrated having to watch him. But at the same time, there's some funny moments. I mean, him basically having Gideon inside of his head as the bunny, basically, but it's his imagination basically is running wild. But I guess Gideon also infected him somehow, possibly, or maybe it's just himself imagining this. I don't know, but there were some funny moments, but then also some moments where I'm just kind of like, okay, this is really dumb. Like Gideon hopping away, which I'm just like, okay, so Gideon's the bunny now. Odd. But then, of course, later on, they trap him and he hides the rings. I'm like, okay, good for you, Gary. Like, you did a good job. And honestly, him convincing Astra to turn back to their side, very convincing. I mean, it is one of those things where she sees, okay, well, my mother's going to die again, so why even bother? And Gary brings up, well, I mean, it's going to be worth it just to spend more time with her. You didn't get to spend that much time with her to begin with. So I like some of those scenes, but then some of them, of course, were just really stupid. The stuff with the zombies and everything, I assume that... I don't really know what's going to happen, but now I'm assuming that there's going to be something where everything sort of gets rewritten, because they're not going to kill off... I mean, I know Sarah's still alive after this season because I've seen pictures of Legends season 6 and 7, and Sarah is still involved. So I know she's going to be brought back to life, but very dystopian in just the way that all of this went down. Honestly, I was kind of shocked when I saw they were doing a zombies episode. All I could think was, okay, but is this going to be like actual zombies episode, or is this going to be kind of a PG version of zombies? But honestly, they got away with some very good kills in this. The one was Zari blowing the guy, or blowing the, what was it, the airbag open and popping the zombie into a metal pipe on the other side. Very creative kill. And I'm not somebody that's all for like, oh, I want my gore. That's not why I watched The Walking Dead to begin with. However, I do appreciate whenever you have a good setup and a good kill on a zombie, and I thought they had some good ones in this one. They didn't really hold back, and I mean, they killed off Sarah for now, so that was pretty interesting. I will say, there was a weird, I guess, element to this because they were immortal for this episode until the very end, where it is kind of like, okay, so all of this stuff, except for Zari, all this stuff doesn't really feel very tense because nobody's really in danger. But obviously, once they get to the end, they take away that immortality, and now they are vulnerable. Although, I think, I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're all vulnerable, because Constantine, he said earlier, they don't go after him because he doesn't have a soul. And then Nick, he should just be able to remain steel forever, unless he gets tired doing that. I don't really remember exactly how his powers work, but I'm assuming he can stay steel for long enough to at least beat all the zombies down, and he doesn't have to worry about them biting through the steel. So those two should be fine, but obviously everybody else is in very real danger. Also, Zarya and John finally hook up because, again, it's a CW show and they're constantly fighting and bickering, so of course that makes a great relationship, right? I don't get it. I don't understand this trope to begin with. I mean, how many times do you see a man and a woman like, oh, you're the last person I want to be with. Yeah, I loathe you. I love you. And then they start kissing. Like, nobody does this in real life. It only ever happens in the movies and the TV shows, because nobody that's that angry and that bickering with somebody is going to fall for them. That doesn't happen. So, I don't know. Their whole romance this season, because of the fact also it's kind of a love triangle with Nate, I don't really care for it. It's just there. I don't care. Can we just move on? It didn't take up too much time in this episode, but it definitely took up a decent amount, to the point where when they finally did hook up, I kind of just rolled my eyes and just like, oh my gosh, here we go. So I don't know, sick of it. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. Like Sarah, obviously, this is something I thought of at the very beginning, so it wasn't a twist whenever she revealed it later. But I assume she saw something where things didn't end well, which I will say is kind of weird because we've seen in the past couple episodes she has the ability to change that. She saw everybody dying on the ship at her hands, and then they changed it because they found out who was responsible. So I don't really get why. I mean, she said, well, I wanted you to lead the team to this point, but I don't really understand why that was such a big deal enough to sacrifice herself for it. Because clearly they can change their outcome. So yeah, I don't know. I just very odd, very out of left field. But again, when you've got the Luma fate involved and you can change fate on a whim, I guess ultimately what matters is you have the heartfelt moments because in the end you can just rewrite everything and say, oh, well, all these characters that died are back alive. So that's why when Asher and Gary got killed, I'm just like, oh no, sure this will be permanent. So yeah, but all in all, it was a good episode. It wasn't fantastic. Honestly, none of these episodes this season have really been great episodes and episodes that made me go, yes, Legends is back. But they've been more fun this season. They've had less stupidity. They've had less annoyance, mainly because Mona's not around as much. But there is still something lacking. I don't know whether there's just a little less charm, maybe, or it could just be because this show has gone on and done a lot of this sort of stupid stuff and silly stuff. Like at times it was funny, but now that it's gone on for more than a few seasons, maybe it has started to outstay its welcome a little bit, and they've sort of run out of ideas on how to keep things fresh and interesting. Because I don't know, it does sort of seem like they're running low on ideas, so let's just throw the fates involved. So I don't know. Because there's not really been a whole lot of time travel involved in this season. Because after they stopped the Encores, now it's been mostly about stopping the Fates, and that doesn't really have anything to do with time travel. So yeah, I don't know. Just it's good. It's just not as good as I remember the past seasons being. So, but all in all, good 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Legends of Tomorrow reviews, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Peace out.